And several days later, we took a part of the turkey, that two-bone wing that nobody ever eats, and turned it into a very special dinner for two.
This is Yeti at Large, a channel focused on making the most out of what you got, no matter where you're at. Now that you're here, let's go. As I'm butchering the bird for Thanksgiving, full video on our channel, you'll see I removed the two-bone section of the wing, and I'm always very diligent to do it right at the joint. That way I don't have loose pieces of bone or ligament. I'm not going to do a deep dive into this. This is just a quick overview. I'm certain you can figure it out. You see here that I have very thick cut bacon, and I hit it with the rolling pin to flatten it out and to really stretch it. Here are my fully deboned two-bone sections of the wing, and I put them in a double layer of plastic wrap, and I tenderized them with the bottom of a saute pan to get them nice and flat. You'll see I tossed in the loose pieces of meat that were a byproduct of the butchering process. I'm going to hit them with a little Trader Joe's spicy sriracha barbecue on the inside. Love the flavor of this, and it has the right amount of heat. It's going to give us a kind of a Western and a different twist from the typical Thanksgiving cranberry that we're going to have. So it's a nice flavor profile. I had some sharp cheddar shreds I'm just going to sprinkle in there. Now, if it looks like a hot mess right now, it's because it is. But pay close attention to the trick here to get the shape that we're wanting and the tension on what is essentially a roulade. I'm going to take that same plastic wrap that I pounded them in, and I'm going to cut it in half. I've got a couple layers here, and by rolling it and packing it the way we do, we're going to get a shape that we can work with. So you see I'll start on my far end, give it a little bit of a tuck, and then use the plastic to lift it over. Now I'm not worried about the length or the ends right now, but what I will do is give it a little push, and then I'll go to the other side and roll back. Done this 10,000 times in commercial kitchens, so trust me when I tell you it works. You get to that end, you pinch the air out, and then use the counter to roll it up, and watch how you get a perfectly round, perfectly compact roulade. And so what if there's a little sauce and cheese on the outside? We're going to handle that in a minute. We'll put them in for a 20-minute ride in the freezer, and now once they've got a little structure and they've firmed up, let's get them in the bacon. As I said before, I took a rolling pin because this was very thick cut bacon, and I rolled it out to get it real flat. You'll see I'm recycling the plastic wrap I used by turning it face side up. If you have thin, cheap bacon, you may not have to do this step, and honestly, you can use any bacon you want. You don't have to use anything extremely nice. So I'll separate out two pieces, and now a lot of people will roll them in a twist or do a spiral roll, but for this one I chose not to. I'm going to get a roasting method on them and a finish that is going to make it easy to handle. So I just lay it on the bacon, I tuck a little end over to make a nice little closure, I pull that firm but not too tight because when you cook it, that bacon's going to shrink up and tighten up. And I've got my one way, and now I'm going to do the other way. Now I know it leaves a little bit of a gap, and people may comment one way or the other, but you'll see once I do the rolling method for the second time, exactly like I did before, roll it up, pinch the air out of the ends, and then use the countertop to spin it tight as can be. Once these were finished, they went into the freezer for a few days. Once company had left and we'd eaten all of our leftovers, we decided to have them for dinner. So here we are after the cooking process, and I'm getting ready to plate. There's our finished Yeti bomb. I'll tell you a little bit more about how I cook that in a second. But at this point, it's my dinner, my clean hands, and I'm cutting it and being very careful. If I was doing this for the public, I'd use a meat fork. That knife is surgical, razor sharp, and I'm being very careful when I'm slicing those to preserve the shape. I'm getting pretty excited for dinner at this point. Here's a close-up shot of what they look like from a cross-section so you can see how those mussels, the cheese, the bacon, all of it work together to make a beautiful little... So this is the finished product with our Yeti bombs. The lovely thing about it, I would have cooked these the day of Thanksgiving if we had needed them, meaning we had enough guests that they would have been useful. But we wanted to save them for a little treat downrange when the pie and the other leftovers ran out. How we prepared them, pulled them from a freezer a day ahead of time, rolled them in aluminum foil so they would hold their round shape, roasted them in the oven at 375 for about 1 hour. At the end of that 1 hour, I unrolled them, put them in a saute pan, and crisped up that bacon beautifully. Same way I do these potatoes. I've never featured them,
But if you go to Sonny's channel, That Dude Can Cook, he makes a great version of this russet stacker. It's a real basic potato, but it's incredible how fluffy it comes out on the inside. So we have our cheddar and our Trader Joe's sriracha barbecue sauce on the inside, smoky bacon on the outside. They were cooked to a lovely crisp, incredibly juicy, steamed a little broccoli, had our potatoes, and several days later we took a part of the turkey, that two-bone wing that nobody ever eats, and turned it into a very special dinner for two. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yeti at large.